guess what? ChatGPT was better. The professors then said, why don't we just, this is a famous study, by the way. Professor said, let's take the best five student ideas and the best five ChatGPT ideas, because when you're brainstorming, you want to get to the very best single idea eventually. Again, ChatGPT won. By this time, it was dark clouds in the classroom. Everybody was depressed. They had gone into Jeff mode in a sense. But then, just for fun, they did another experiment. They gave the students who had developed the best five human ideas, they gave them the keyboard and said, why don't you guide ChatGPT and see after spending 5 minutes with it, can it create an even better idea or even five even better ideas? So they did that for 5 minutes and then had the five best ChatGPT ideas with the five best human plus ChatGPT ideas, and the human plus ChatGPT ideas won.
Welcome to 99 Humans. My name is Jeff LaCosta, curious coach and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, striving to understand how little things generate big impact.
And I'm Nadia Carta, tech executive and lifestyle coach with a mission to transform lives and corporations by kindling hearts to generate a zeal for life.
Each week, we investigate stories about the human side of leadership to re-energize your spirit and help you become a stronger leader.
Because the reality is that leadership is messy, goofy, challenging, but always human.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Let's dive in.
Well, happy Friday, everybody. We are back on the 99 Humans track. This is going to be episode 95. So the ride is on, and Jeff is back. We missed you last Friday, Jeff.
Yes, good to be back. I was camping in Western Maryland for a good friend's wedding. So hard to get Wi-Fi out there, but we had a blast.
Oh, I'm sure you recharged your batteries. At least you were not camping in Antarctica like you typically do.
That's right. That was a one-time thing.
Well, today I'm very excited because, as you know, in my travels and client work and all of that, I often meet incredible people. And this is how I met Shiv. Actually, Shiv and I were on speakers in the same event in Cannes, nonetheless. It was boiling hot, and the theme was AI. I mean, no wonder.
Imagine that.
But what I loved about Shiv was not only the things that he said about AI, what I loved about him is his leadership and how he approached it. Shiv is also an author. He has several books out. So we will share all of this in the show note. And without further ado, let me welcome Shiv.
Thank you for having me on. Great to be joining this podcast with you both.
Shiv, if y'all met in Cannes, where does this podcast find you today?
Yes, I would say more boring locations. I live just outside San Francisco, and I'm at home. But it's a beautiful sunny day, and I'm happy to be home. This side of the world, this corner of the world.
Well, Jeff lived in San Francisco for many years. How many, Jeff?
That's right, about 13 years. So now we live in Atlanta, but the Bay is still feels like home in many, many ways after that long.
Yeah, no, it's special, and I've got to admit, I'm a little nervous that I'm on the same coast as our president and Putin this morning because they're just north of me in Alaska. But fortunately, there's a good amount of distance between me and what might be going on over there.
Whatever fallout happens from this.
That's right.
Well, Shiv, I know that you travel a lot and you're one of those people that are busy bees, as I like to call them, because it means that you live life with this incredible zeal that brings you places. But when you think about this moment today, what is life bringing to you?
What is life bringing to me? So what I would say more than anything else, and that's why I was so excited to even do this podcast with you both, is I think we're entering a time where the very definition of what leadership is going to test each of our own mettle in different ways. And I feel that, I'm a student of history, and yes, history repeats itself, and we want to believe that what we're seeing has come before, and it's just another evolution. But whether it's the technological transformations, the political turbulence around the world, I'm not just talking about here, or the social ramifications of inequality or these tragic hotspots of war, it's going to test each and every one of us in our own lives, in our own little world, in how we parent, in how we teach, in how we educate, in how we lead in corporations. So I think it's the very definition of leadership is on the cusp of changing as well.
I'm curious, as a student of history, like you say, what makes you feel like this moment is so unique compared to, so I feel like every generation feels like times are hard and everything is worse maybe than it was. If we're pessimists, I've certainly heard my grandparents say that and my parents say that. Now I'm saying that. But it's hard to, deny that there is something special happening with technology and with geopolitics and with all of the connectivity that we didn't have that makes, situations possible that weren't possible before. But I'm curious what makes it unique in your mind.
Yeah, so for me, I'd say it's a confluence of a few different forces coming together. The first is I have to begin the dramatic technological change that we're experiencing is unmatched to anything we've seen before. So and yes, I'm talking about generative AI and how whether you pick your AI guru or your AI expert from down the road here in the Bay Area, but we're less than a decade away from superintelligence. Some say 5 years, like the Anthropic founder and CEO Dario. Others say 8 years, but that's super. They all say within the next decade we're going to have superintelligence. And what superintelligence is not artificial general intelligence. It means that each of us could have an intelligent thing with us in whatever form or shape it takes that is alone smarter than all of humanity together combined right now. So just that alone is a level of scale of transformation of change that we're on the cusp of experiencing that will have massive ramifications that we've never seen before. I mean, I liken it to when those first cavemen and cavewomen discovered fire. They knew they were holding on to something so mind-blowingly powerful, but they couldn't, they were limited by their imaginations in terms of its impact on us for centuries and thousands of years later than that. So that's one piece of that's one part of it, the technological change tied to AI specifically. The second is tied to this, but coming a little earlier, is how all of a sudden, and this was the topic of my second book, information has become so malleable and so contested and so much a matter of information, and that the differences between fact and fiction, the lines are blurred so dramatically, tragically at times, enabled by technology, creating chaos factories, that unlike in the past, we have much less of a shared understanding among us as people around the world. Now, you and I, Jeff, we have a connection because we have the physical experience of knowing the Bay Area well. Nadia, you and I were con together. That creates a shared experience. But if you think about how much of our lives are digitally driven and how much of those experiences are increasingly being manufactured as well, or how much our emotions are being played with, it creates a diversive reality that's going to be very hard for us to comprehend and deal with. That's the second thing. The third point is just if you look at the geopolitics as these two forces coming together, we've never had greater wealth and greater inequality. Pick your country. It doesn't matter. We've never had less agreement on shared values within the context of a country. And I know we want to talk about it here a lot in America, but I was shocked to see this Financial Times poll that just talked about how in the last 1 year alone, the Labour government in the UK went from 10% positive rating or popularity to negative 30%, all just in 1 year after being elected. And you look at what happens in India and Turkey. I mean, again, you pick your country, crazy dynamics. And then we have tragic wars that increasingly are remote wars as well. Now, who'd have thought that? And I think it's incredible technology. And being American, I think it's super impressive. But from I think Missouri, we could send bombers all the way to Iran to do precision bombing and return in 48 hours. Those bombers were pilot driven, but it's not hard to imagine in a year's time that we could circle the globe without pilots. So there's a huge amount of change happening, and I know we're probably losing our audience with how depressing I'm sounding by the second. There are positives too, but to your question of why we're experiencing such change, it's about equality, it's about contested truths, it's about a dramatic shift in technology with AI that we're on the cusp of seeing that's far beyond anything that has come in the history of humankind. So when you pull together forces like that, it's a crazy time to be alive.
I personally love that you gave such a review of all these forces. There's a fourth one that I typically add when I speak about these matters, which is the situation of our planet, the
Yes.
resources that we are consuming, and we might not be able to reproduce. And I mean, what's happening all over. I don't find it gloomy just because I do feel that there are mitigations that government and coalitions can potentially put in place. But the question is, will the giants of the world just come together to fix it potentially? What the question I want to ask you about all of this, I know that you are not in a corporation anymore, but you've spent in corporations many, many years. And I really appreciate you having the ability to look at corporations now from outside. And when I think about all you just said, and I think about people having to manage other people and leaders having to manage these very large teams in this moment, myself included, because I'm still in the corporation. What are those leaders equipped with? Like what do they how can they even help themselves? Because I gotta tell you, we the three of us are talking about these very high themes. Majority of the leaders out there, they need to reach their quarterly quotas, they have metrics they need to fulfill, and individual contributors, they need money on the table to pay for their rents and kids management and all of that. So what's your perspective on how can these people help themselves and help others?
Yeah. No, I think that's such a good question. And um, I sort of feel the nature of leadership and what it means to be a leader or a manager uh, changed dramatically with COVID. And the reason why it changed was because all of a sudden we were peeking into each other's personal lives via Zoom tiles like the ones in front of each of us right now. And I think as leaders, it gave us a greater sense of responsibility that we have to each other. So I'd say the stakes have gotten higher. That's the first thing. The second is tied to that, it's become very difficult to separate the personal from the professional
Mm.
from the political. And, I don't know, the three of us could have very different political views. But one thing's for certain that I'm sure we'll all agree on is politics is in the business world today. You can't separate it. All you have to do is look at the American Eagle stock price after President Trump talked about the campaign to know that it's deeply connected. So that's a new responsibility for leaders. The third, I would say, is that with the technological change, employees today, and I built my career many, many years at Visa, PepsiCo, on the agency side before that, I was at Lending Tree and Expedia Group, two large organizations, is for many years, we could just give our employees simple jobs to do. We could break down the nature of how business gets done into a series of sub and sub tasks. and everyone knew their role in the factory system of how work got done. And we just needed to manage and have good KPIs towards that. The challenge is, as we do that, and I'm dealing with this today because I'm advising a Fortune 200 company on this. As we do that, those same employees are getting increasingly nervous, and with good reason, that 2 years or 5 years or 8 years from now or 10 years from now, they may not even have jobs. And they worry that as we ask them to lean into the technology, we are actually asking them to learn how to put themselves out of jobs. So for a manager who's focused on their P&L and getting folks to do stuff, they have much greater challenges than before. So that's the problem. How do you solve that? It comes with a few simple ideas, at least in my perspective, based on my experience. And that is, nothing beats extreme vulnerability. And the most important dimension of that is talking about how little you may know. And I'll give you a very different example from this that has relevance. So it was 2015, 2016. I was at Visa, and we were holding one of our client summits, and it was in Montenegro. And I'd flown in. I was giving one of the keynote talks on the future of payment technology for all of our European banks and Central European bank customers, serious bankers, senior merchants as well. And 20 minutes before getting on stage, I caught up with our president who ran that region, and I said, "Hey, just want to check anything special I should know before I go on stage and speak. Any tips, any advice? These are your local clients." And I fully expected him to really not say anything I didn't know. To be blunt, I knew my job well. I'd been traveling around the world a lot. I'd been to Europe to meet with many of those clients in the past. And he said something that stopped me in my tracks. And this is 2015. Now it seems so obvious. He was like, "Just know, you have Ukrainian bankers in the room and you have Russian bankers in the room. And whatever you do, you cannot make either any more upset with the other side as they already are." And I was like, I got to admit, it's not in my skill set to know how to avoid saying what I don't even know what could upset them. But he was like, "Hey, we're a global organization. You're an SVP. You figure it out. But whatever you say on stage about payments and money flows across Central Europe and Russia and Western Europe, don't say anything that will upset either the Russian or the Ukrainian bankers." I share this to emphasize that point that, yes, we can all talk about vulnerability, but more than that is, no one is equipped as a leader in these times to deal with the complexity that we're dealing, but we can ask the questions and we can ask each other, and through that, we can learn a lot. He did go on to give me a series of really helpful tips, actually. He was just being an asshole for the first minute, and he was a great guy, incredible leader. But we have to ask even more questions, regardless of how senior or how fancy we may think we are.
Is there an innate sort of built-in undercurrent here that being a follower is also changing? I'm curious if you feel like there's a different set of responsibilities that followership, which I'm a big believer that to be a good leader, you also need to learn at least how to be a good follower. But what does that mean if leadership's changing? How does that impact followership?
Yeah, it reminds me of another story. This is going a little further back, and I'm going to bring you folks stateside now to Miami. It was 2012. We were having a Pepsi bottler meeting, so it was like 3,000 of us, everyone from Pepsi headquarters, and then our bottling franchises and all executives. So think of it as like a conference dynamic. And I'll never forget. We had a day's activities. Pepsi had just lost second spot to Diet Coke. I still struggle to say that word. So it was, arguably a very depressing time. And two things stayed with me And I share this as examples of how I learned to be a better leader and got a sense of what followership should be like. Is the CEO of the North America beverages business got on stage and he said, "Okay, I know you're mad at me. You're mad at everyone around you. You feel your self worth has dropped because we've just gotten, beaten," and he used some other words that I won't mention, uh, by those red guys in Atlanta. And he said, "Well, here's what I want each of you to do. I want each of you to look under your chair right now." So imagine huge hall, 3,000 people sitting, watching him on the fancy stage. Everyone looked under their chair, and we all had a doormat. And the doormat, the image on it was that of a crushed can, of a crushed Coke can. And he said, "Guess what? We're going to crush our competition. And I want each of you to take your own doormat and keep it at your front door and walk on it every day when you come into work." So the leadership and what drove the followership was he addressed the elephant in the room. He did it in dramatic fashion, and he gave us the feeling that we would die for him. That is the first. That was at 9 or 8 a.m. in the morning. At 2 a.m. that night, after the official dinner, after the official cocktails, there were only 8 to 9 people left in the bar of the hotel. Everyone had gone back to their rooms, getting ready for the next day, starting at 6 a.m. Guess who was one of the 8 people still there? It was the president, a 60-year-old of the North America beverages business. And he was like, "I'm not going to leave until everyone else around me leaves. So if we want to do an all-nighter, we're going to do it." So in that, I saw the importance of how to lead from the front. But what I also saw was he cultivated followership by just being there at every stage. Now, followership is not something that we explicitly choose necessarily. I believe it's more implicit, and we make those more subconscious choices based on how we see people around us and who we like and think they align with our values, he or she, and we want to learn from them, be around them. He embodied that for me, and I mean, he was a student of servant leadership, but that's how I sort of saw what it meant to be a follower. I wanted to lead him. That's one big part. The other piece I just want to touch on really quickly is um, we're in an interesting time here in America where you have extremes of wealth and you have this whole new philosophy around leadership, which is finally power's back with the ones with the powerful. You just have to think back to the inauguration and all the people that were standing behind Trump, the billionaires and the corporate leaders that felt obliged to. You just need to think about return to work and how everyone's forced back into the office. What can't be forced upon employees, though, is followership. And for however much inequality there is in the world, or for however much complexity or concentration of power, and I know I might be sounding like a socialist, but I'm a proud capitalist. We'll get to that in a minute. It's people have choice. They always have choice. And when it comes to followership, we choose who to follow, I think more subconsciously, but in the long run, that's what creates successful countries and democracies. That's why America's, the most amazing country in the world, the immigration story. It's the ultimate follow the leader dynamic in a sense. And for the complexities in the world around us and the new standards of leadership, those basics still hold true, those values.
Can I drop one of my bombs?
Let's do it. Let's go for it.
If you've listened to some of our episodes, you know that I'm known for my bombs. So I buy into almost everything you said, with few exception and tweaks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to outline it for our listeners. So we are witnessing this platform shift with AI basically democratizing skills and capabilities and outcomes across the world. Like a kid in India can now produce a film that could go viral and could land them an advertising campaign. I'm making extremes, but it's possible. The
Yes.
technology out there, it's now pretty substantially impressive, let's say. And to your point about super intelligence and all of it, obviously all the leaders that we work in corporation, we built incredible lifestyles around the salaries that we make, and we have all these responsibilities and all of that. And to your point, we're now building the society in which our own job could be, for a reason, deprecated of all of that. Yet we know that with all these AI tools, for those that are hungry and foolish and creative, there's never been such a land of opportunities to make a difference as before. Like until probably 15 years ago, your only chance to become wealthy was either to be an entrepreneur or to land a job in one of the top 50, right? But now, if you're smart and brilliant and all of that, you could become a millionaire in many other ways. So if we now attach the point we were making about leaders and fellowship and all of that, and the fact that for Gen Z, money is not anymore the most important element, our nervous system is the ability to choose what we want to do with our time, freedom, our passion project. Like, I don't want to be with the president of my company until 2 a.m. in a bar. Like at that time, I probably want to be in bed because I want to wake up at 6 a.m. the day after and go for a hike in the acres that I own somewhere upstate. So I'm taking a bit of extremes here because I mean those leaders, like, what are we gonna offer to a 25 years old in 10 years from now to have them come and work for us on a 9 to 5? Like, I will be very surprised. Like, how are we gonna put a job out? And people are like, yeah, like coming to the office, you foolish. Like, why? So, what's your
Yeah.
perspective about that?
Well, I so much interesting stuff to unpack there, but I'd start by saying I think it's a good question whether the 9 to 5 will need to even exist. And I'd start with that premise. And I say this because on the positive side, we are entering an incredible time where, as you know, I talked about Nadia when we were together, where any of us or any of our children can be incredible specialists and generalists all at once. I'm a writer by trade. I write books. I wrote long emails when I was in my corporate jobs, and I've been known for that. But that's how I express myself. Thanks to generative I can also illustrate like one of the best illustrators in the world. I can also shoot film and direct film like Steven Spielberg, even though I don't have a millionth of the kind of talent that he has. Um, a decade ago, I put in a lot of effort to train my kids on how to code because I was like, guys, it's going to be the future. It's super important. And they hated me for it. And I was like, one day you'll thank me. They're not going to thank me. They're already still upset because with vibe coding, just like 2 nights ago, my 16-year-old, my oldest son, he had an idea for an app. And by 10 a.m. the next morning, he had built it. I was like, dude, firstly, you're supposed to sleep at night. But then he's like, no, wait, let me show you what I've done. So we're entering this time where, especially for that 25-year-old example, where you're able to do so much more yourself, whether you're in a corporate context or a personal context, to recruit and retain the best talent, will need to allow them to be sitting on that 25-acre plot in upstate New York or choosing to work from midnight to 7 a.m. versus 9 to 5, as long as the work gets done, because the kind of skills that will be needed will be much harder to find because it'll be the skills and experiences that AI can't do itself. So this is where I say that the entire paradigm in the next decade is going to change.
Just to help us fill in the silver lining here that you're starting to paint, what are those skills that AI won't be able to do so that we can direct our ships towards those things?
Well, I'll start by saying it So I get asked that a lot, and I promise everybody I don't have any fancy answers because I can't see the future myself.
Yep.
But there are few constants that we can hold to. The first of which is what we're doing right now. For the foreseeable future, it is going to be a human centric world. And that means being able to connect the dots between different subjects, to have a conversation that, I hope at least is interesting enough for others to want to listen to and join or participate in, to be able to think through, yes, we'll have AI agents by the millions doing all kinds of tasks for us. But guess what? At least in my case, I know I'm going to still want to go and physically shop because it does something in my brain and I really enjoy doing that. And if I want to go and physically shop, guess what? I also want to talk to people because I'm wired to engage with other people as well, which means there'll be people, in those shops talking to me, and there'll be people behind them managing the entire corporations that drive that shopping experience. So yes, a bunch of things will change dramatically. However, because it's still a human to human world, anything that requires human interaction, that requires conversation, experience, expertise, taste. Oh my God, taste is one of the biggest areas that is going to be highly differentiated. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how my 16-year-old and my 14-year-old boys, their brains are wired. And the only piece that's hard for me to get a grip on is their taste in music.
Hmm.
And I use a lot of AI tools, and I'm at the forefront of a lot of these technologies, but nothing helps me with understanding that problem. And that's deeply human. So the deeply human stuff is going to stay without a doubt. And I do fundamentally believe we are entering an era of entrepreneurship where there'll be new companies, new products, new ways of working, new ways of living. We just don't know. In 2000, for example, no one would have thought that a quarter of the global advertising industry would go to Alphabet. And I say that as a massive compliment. Nobody knew Google that it existed. And that's just in 25 years, that kind of growth. So huge swaths of jobs will go away, but others will be created that we just don't know what they will be right now.
Yeah, stats that I shared in a keynote that I did in Los Angeles 2 days ago is that 9 million jobs will be deprecated by 2030, but 11 million new ones are going to be emerging thanks to AI. And to your point that you did earlier with fire, eventually we only know what we can know. Again, we don't know how far the technology can go, and we don't know what we can create. What I agree very much with you is that you we are created to be craving human connection. I mean, this is how kids are made. And in most cases, let's say.
Yeah.
And eventually, the future that I'm looking forward to is the future where anything that is risk related and where the human species is in danger to execute a given job that is now necessary will be rather given to an AI based tool, so that we humans can actually go back and do what we are best in do, which is the thinking, the creating. In fact, I read another stat that the wellness industry, so anything associated with wellness, trips, holidays, all of that, it's like growing in double digit and in the trillions for the next years. The question is going to be, we're going to be the buyers of those.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
either the amount of cash that we all have available is going to be multiplied, or to your point, the gap between wealth and non-wealth will be even wider.
Yeah. One sort of nuance to that, if I may, ever so slightly maybe have a different opinion, or mildly different opinion, is is so two things. Firstly, I don't think we're going to be able to compete with the AI on the thinking side. I also don't think we're going to be able to compete on the creativity side. Now, the process of creativity is inherently human. It's going to do, and it's already starting to do, immense fake creativity, but it's going to be impossible to tell the difference. I look at that Wimbledon influencer from 2 months ago, Mia Zula, I think. Oh, was doing some incredible posting on Instagram. We all loved following her. Gave us an incredible peek into what Wimbledon was like if you couldn't be there yourself. Only problem is she wasn't real. She was an AI influencer, but had, I don't know, 165,000 followers on Insta, etc. So thinking creativity is going to be greater than what we are capable of as human beings. However, and this is probably, I'd say, my most important point, what we will control, hopefully, if we as human beings play our cards right, is human agency. It'll be our choice to say, the little drawing I did by hand, I actually prefer that to what that AI tool created for me. And I'm going to assign more meaning to it or more substance to it. When I think about what's going on across the world today, the greatest stress points aren't actually technological, they're human driven. Where it's and where there's success, it's human beings stepping up and making a stronger voice. If you look at it politically, the political leaders, good and bad, or the business leaders, good and bad, that carry most weight today, it's they're retail leaders, meaning they're winning or losing based on their skills and how they connect with other people. Elon Musk at X and SpaceX and everywhere else, his company started to struggle a bit because his personal reputation and the way he was engaging with the rest of the world was taking a very big hit. In contrast, Chase and Jamie Dimon, as just an example, on the upswing because he's leading in a very different way. And we could talk about 100 political examples in the same way. So human agency is at the center, and that's what we control. And then the people winning and losing are the ones who relate better with everybody else.
This is getting at an issue that's very close to my heart because I have entered into full-time writing career also as an author, and I have a talk coming up in about a month on AI and how it's impacting writing. And I'd just love your opinion, and maybe you can make me feel a bit better. Because when I look at the ads and I understand where AI is going, at least from a marketing perspective, boy, it's coming for the creative arts so hard. And I hope that you're right. I hope that we'll value the hand-drawn sketch, which will be certainly worse than whatever AI can do because it was hand-drawn. But I worry, to your point about not being able to tell the difference, that will be actually a hard value judgment to make because I'm not sure which one was hand-drawn. So I want to put my value maybe on the hand-drawn one, but I can't tell unless you tell me. So it feels like while we all want AI to be doing the dishes and the dangerous tasks, to Nadia's point, and the things that, like breaking new breakthroughs in Alzheimer's, man, that would be the dream. That's not the email I just got. I got, make a movie like Steven Spielberg. Well, I'd love to do that, but AI can do that, So okay, what's the point? Are we removing the joys of life so that we end up just sort of manipulating our AIs to do things in the approximation of joy because we are dopamine chasers? And I'm not sure we figured out social media yet. And we're already on AI, we're already arguably letting social media kind of ravage the planet without much guardrails. I worry because we haven't solved social media as a case study that maybe we won't be able to solve AI and we'll just be dopa fiends looking for that hit of look at what I did. But to your point, it's so much less meaningful for an AI to spit it out. And I could envision a world, and I'm actually an optimist, so I'm just, playing devil's advocate a little, but I could envision a world that's a little darker because of that, where we're wondering, well, what's missing? Look at all the movies we have. Look at all the art we have. Look at all the But what's missing is that human agency, because it's so hard to attach to things that, are hard to tell the difference.
Jeff, I thought it was my job to be the dystopian person on this podcast, but I think you might have just outdone me in that
Pull me out of
moment.
the dark here.
I mean,
So,
Jeff is the most positive person ever. So we cannot leave this call on a low note.
okay, look, so first and foremost, just to um frame this up right, I feel your pain. I've been writing since I was 6 years old. Uh, in high school, I wrote short stories. In college, I went to a business school, but I wrote fiction as my honors thesis. I've written 3 books. I think and dream in words all the time. I buy books like there's no tomorrow. I could probably open my own bookstore. It's that's my world. That's
You would
so
not
it
be alone. Between the three of us, probably we own the equals of Barnes and
I love
Nobles.
it. Yes.
amazing, amazing. So I hear where you're coming from. Now look, I can only look at different pieces of research to answer that question. And the one I want to draw from for this point is this incredible tiny piece of research, not tiny, but incredible piece of research done 2 years ago. Two Wharton professors with their students. Um, they gave them an assignment, come back with a product idea. They had 24 hours. They went back, they drank beer, ate pizza, came back, each of them very proudly with a product idea. And they give ChatGPT the same question. And in a matter of seconds, of course, it came back with 100 ideas. The professors ran a purchase intent study against now 200 ideas, 100 created by the students, 100 created by ChatGPT to see which were better. Guess what? ChatGPT was better. The professors then said, why don't we just, this is a famous study, by the way. Professor said, let's take the best 5 student ideas and the best 5 ChatGPT ideas, because when you're brainstorming, you want to get to the very best single idea eventually. Again, ChatGPT won. By this time, it was dark clouds in the classroom. Everybody was depressed. They had gone into Jeff mode in a sense. But then, just for fun, they did another experiment. They gave the students who had developed the best 5 human ideas, they gave them the keyboard and said, why don't you guide ChatGPT and see after spending 5 minutes with it, can it create an even better idea or even 5 even better ideas? So they did that for 5 minutes and then had the 5 best ChatGPT ideas with the 5 best human plus ChatGPT ideas, and the human plus ChatGPT ideas won. My point is, and there are like a dozen other studies that show a similar trend line, which is, yes, I believe fundamentally the bar for creativity is being raised. The bar for good writing is being raised. But guess what? You know who can tell who's got the best writing or who's speaking the most in Jeff's voice? It's Jeff and people around Jeff as well. So I actually don't think writing is going to go away. I think all of us writers have to play to a higher bar. The common denominator is being raised. But you know what? I'm fine with that. It makes the world more interesting. So I hope that helps for what it's worth.
And I'm going to add, because I love what you just said, it was so beautiful, that people will have preferences. There
Yeah.
are 8 billion people in the world. We like different voices. We like to read things in different style, and that will stay. Some people will like the GBT, some other people will like more the human led, some other people will like the blend. So thankfully, as you said, taste will still stay human.
Without a doubt. And the businesses that benefit the most will be the ones that tap into those deep insights and monetize, productize, create platforms for that.
So, Shiv, we are approaching the end of the show. So, those of you that listen to all of them, you know what the last question is. We always ask the same, which is, what is your word of wisdom for all the people listening to this episode?
So, you know, So I do a few things in my life today. I try to be a better husband, a better parent. Consult with Fortune 500 companies on marketing and the future of AI in the workplace. And I sit on a very large board, a Fortune 200 company board. So I'm always thinking about how can we build our careers better? How can we think about better parenting, advice for our children? So this is a question I think about a lot, but I worry I don't have enough good answers. What I would say is a piece of advice. One is we've never seen anything like this in the history of humankind, what we're seeing with AI. Those of you who compared to Web 1.0, the mobile web, uh, electricity, the printing press, yes, we're really at the cusp of it. But what's hitting us in the next 10 years is beyond our imaginations. Using that as a constant, there's only one path forward, which is to reinvent yourself for this future, or to tell your children to wipe clean your slate. You have a new opportunity. It's a new world to rebuild, re-identify yourself. Jump into that. And then what I also say is it is ironically going to be the most human centric era at the same time. And the leaders and the countries and the companies and the individuals that lead happier, more fulfilling lives are the ones who will be more deeply value driven than anyone else. And never lose sight of that. So just my 2 cents. That's how I think about it.
I love it. Thank you so much. Where can people connect with you if they want to reach out?
Wherever they want to, I'm on LinkedIn, X, Insta, all the usual places. They can find my books. My most recent one, which is very different to a lot of what we talked about today, is Marketing with AI for Dummies. So it's about the fundamentals. It's on Amazon, but wherever they want to connect with me, I'm there.
Ooh, I follow you already on LinkedIn. I'm gonna follow you on Insta now. Are you the same person? Because I did a test last week about, ooh, I have multiple personas. Which category are you? Are you the same or different?
I am a little different, except when I get harassment from my publisher to promote my book. Because he's like, it's good, but it can do even better. And he's like, why aren't you using Insta to promote your book? I'm like, that's not a work setting for me, but
I
Sometimes.
love that. So you are like what I always assume, that you are another persona there. So I'm gonna find you there. Don't be surprised by my witchcraft over there.
all right.
Okay, well, thank you for being with us. I truly enjoyed it, this deep convo. It was you give us a lot of things to think about. So we're grateful for you, Sheep.
Thank you very much for having me on, and great to see you again, and nice to meet you, Jeff. And keep
You
writing.
too. You too. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right. Well, what a amazing conversation. Very energizing for this Friday afternoon to go deep into AI, hear some of his fantastic stories, and really poke around what we know is changing the world with somebody who's deeply in it, like yourself.
Well, as you know, I find people all over, or they find me, since I'm magnetized.
Yes. Yes. Well, Nadia, as always, what are you taking away from that conversation?
Oh God, I don't think 5 minutes would be enough for this, because this conversation really was very eclectic and in a lot of directions. You know what was the piece that I liked the most now that I think about it? I really loved when he shared with us about the study about the human plus AI in type of intelligence. That segment really excited me, because I see it in my own skin, in my writing and in my ideation of things. I love that I have a thought partner that I can do and I can talk to, and I can check my English grammar mistakes and all of that. And I've been testing in it few times, doing my own writing and then asking to correct it and vice versa. And there's a lot to explore, and I'm just excited that even my kids, they can play with it to give an outlet to their thinking and creativity and all of that. So that was the piece that really, really, really stick with me and excites me. What about you, Jeff?
Similar piece, but a different element to it. I have heard before, if you take lawyers just as an example, you're not competing with AI, you're competing against lawyers who use AI. And that sort of turn of phrase is becoming quite popular. But I really liked Shiv's point that what that means is that the bar is raised, which how can we not think that's a good thing? The quality of work, the quantity, so many things that are productive and are good and are just becoming that much better. And with AI, we can cross that bar and set the new bar, which will be something that we can't imagine right now, but will exist until, our tools will help us again. And we've actually seen stair step movements like that through history. And when I think about it as a bar being raised, it feels really positive to me. Whereas other turns of phrase, I guess we're talking about the same thing. It's just how you say it and how we think about it. And that way of saying it really resonated as something that I like and I want to be a part of and is energizing. So I agree. As much as we, felt around the dark clouds, at the end of the day, optimism still wins, which, as you know, will be how I end it, no matter what the truth is.
When you're born an optimist, you'll always be an optimist.
That's
And
right.
that's what magnetizes others. So I'm all for team I vibrations no matter what.
I love it. Well, until next time, we have a very few number of episodes left. But if you liked this, please share with a friend, give us 5 stars on Spotify or wherever you're listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Oh, yeah. 4 more to go. Have a good
Bye.
one, Jeff. Bye.